Well, hello, everybody. Welcome into this edition of the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling Podcast. It's good to be back here with you guys, and we have a very special episode for you here today. Now, some of you guys already have caught almost all of this on the live stream that we did the other day, a few days ago, with this great interview that Rob Burnett and I did with author David Shabazz, who came in here and we talked to David about his phenomenal book, Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions. It's a great interview. You guys are going to hear all of that here coming up. I'm not even going to talk to you guys long. I'm just doing the introduction to this episode to let you guys know what's going on. This is the 331st episode of the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling Podcast, and it is going to be this great interview with David Shabazz coming up in just a few minutes. And I know that at the end of this, I did not give contact information. I'm going to actually do that at the beginning of this episode and kind of let you guys know of a second episode that's coming up on the heels of this really soon. If you want to go ahead and look at, if you want to get a hold of me, you want to talk to me, if you want to email the show, you can email the show at attitudeofaggression@gmail.com. That is the best way to email the show. If you want to follow me on X, it is at AttitudeAg. That is at AttitudeAGG. Go there. Please hit the, follow us there. And that's where a lot of the action is happening over there on Attitude of Aggression on the X account at AttitudeAg. The website is where a lot of the action is going on as well, attitudeofaggression.com. Please go there. If you're into the UFO side of things, the UAP side of things, you can go there, and all the historical analysis documents are there for your viewing, your edification. Those are the collaborative efforts between myself and ChatGPT. There's some good stuff going on over there at the Attitude of Aggression website. Also, you can facebook.com/Attitude of Aggression. If you go there, please go ahead and hit the like button. That's a good place to go as well. A little bit active on Instagram at Attitude of Aggression, all one word, and that sort of thing. And of course, wherever you're in the YouTube channel, by all means, please check out. We are doing a lot of videos, a lot of video content right now. The Attitude of Aggression's YouTube channel. We put out a lot of shorts. We put out a lot of videos. The live streams are all there. And you can also follow me on TikTok. It is at DavidUnger68. So I'm putting a lot of the stuff there as well. Before we get to David's interview here, let me just say that we got some stuff coming up. The part 2 of the 11th Annual Swaggy Awards, we recorded that just yesterday. I am actually recording this intro on Saturday, January 17th. We recorded part 2 of the 11th Annual Swaggy Awards yesterday. Excellent show. Even got a couple of run-ins from some people who couldn't be there for the whole show, but it's a lot of fun. Game Gone Wrong is coming back. We are going to cover A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And after consulting with my 2 partners in crime on that, PC Tunney and DJ, we decided not to change the name of the show. We're just going to keep it as Game Gone Wrong and roll with that, because who knows? I mean, we don't know if Night of the Seven Kingdoms will stick the landing. We don't know if that's going to go off the rails. We don't know what House of the Dragon Season 3, when that comes back, whether that's going to be the hit that it seems to have been so far, that sort of thing. So we decided we're going to keep the name Game Gone Wrong. It's branded. People know that. And I kind of dig the logo. So we're going to do that. But that's coming up. Unidentified History will be coming back pretty soon. We've got the big event coming up in Washington, D.C. this week. James Fox's big event coming up at the National Press Club. I'm sure there'll be coverage of that. We are going to get to the Kenneth Arnold sighting as well. The Big Five project is coming back now that we've kind of sorted out where most of the classic WWE content went. Although, ironically enough, the thing we're going to do when we come back is looking at Bash at the Beach 96, and that's nowhere to be found. So I can't find that. That's not on Netflix. It did not migrate over. It's not on Peacock. The WWE Vault, the whole show's not on there. Luckily for me, I already had reviewed it before all this insanity with the network, or not the network, with Peacock went down. But that is all stuff coming up. So lots of things happening here at the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling Podcast. But now let us get to the interview that Rob and I did with David Shabazz. And you know what? Nobody has gotten this in years. Tunney's going to remember this when he hears this playback. We used to do this for all the guests that we would get on the Attitude of Aggression podcast, but we haven't done anything for a while. So David Shabazz is going to be the first recipient of the Ron Burgundy jazz flute. And hopefully nobody hits that with some stupid copyright, frivolous nonsense. But that's another story for another time. But anyway, David is going to get the Ron Burgundy jazz flute. We're going to get to the interview with David Shabazz. We will catch you guys really soon for part 2 of the 11th annual Swaggy Awards. And then beyond that, Unidentified History, Big 5 Project, Game Gone Wrong, lots of stuff happening over here at the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling Podcast. Appreciate the support from everybody. Ron, take us to the interview with David, please. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome into this very special edition of the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling Podcast, coming to you here on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. I am your host, Dave Unger, coming to you here today. And it has been a while since we did an interview on the pro wrestling side of things. We've done some interviews on the UFO, UAP side of things, but not on the pro wrestling side of things for quite a while. So this is a special occasion because we are joined here today by author David Shabazz. Did I pronounce that right, David, or did I butcher that? Or
yeah, it's actually Shabazz.
It's okay.
Yes.
David Shabazz coming in here to talk to us about this great book that he has written called Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions. David, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, sir?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on. This is a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to get you on here. I know we've been working on this for quite a while. It's been like a month we've been talking about doing this, and
Right.
The holidays came here and all that fun stuff, and that was great. But I'm really thrilled to get you on here. So let me kind of start off by just getting some background information on you and kind of like your early interest in professional wrestling. So when did you first start watching, professional wrestling? And like, was there anything specific that turned you into a fan, like a match, a moment, a wrestler, or anything like that?
No, not really. I've been a wrestling fan all my life. My parents watched pro wrestling, so it was on the TV when I was a kid, so I grew up watching it. So it was just basically a part of my DNA.
Awesome. So you got in through your parents, and they kind of got you into this whole thing. So like, who were some of the wrestlers who you recall being like most influential or impactful to you? Like when you first started watching and you were a fan, like who were the people that you gravitated towards back in? When are we talking? Like, what year did you first start watching this stuff?
Oh gosh, early 70s. So yeah, I mean, I liked the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, and I remember the original one, Ole and Gene Anderson. Of course, Ric Flair. I think everybody likes Ric Flair. I'm from South Carolina, so I'm a mid-Atlantic guy and a mid-South. I grew up watching those promotions, Georgia Championship Wrestling, more so than WWE now. But of course I watched Hogan, and I mean, everybody knew Hulk Hogan and a couple other Savage and a couple of guys from that promotion as well. But I was primarily a Southern guy. So yeah, I mean, Tony Atlas, I mean, even Abdullah the Butcher, Harley Race. I grew up watching those guys.
What part of South Carolina are you from?
I was born in a small town called Clinton. That is in the upstate, close to Spartanburg.
Okay, because my dad's from Orangeburg.
Okay. Midlands, around the...
I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, so we were right on the line of WWF at the time and the NWA, and I mean, so they're both rolling through there, and so I got the full flavor of everything. Like you mentioned Tony Atlas. Like, I mean, I remember the first show I ever went to at the Capitol Center in D.C. was Tony Atlas versus Ken Patera when they were in that big feud that they were having, and that was just like. I mean, I tell people like the first 3 wrestling cards I ever went to, the main events were Tony Atlas, Ken Patera, Andre the Giant, and Hulk Hogan when the roles were reversed, and Andre was the face and Hulk was the heel, and Bruno Sammartino and Larry Sabisco in a lumberjack match, which was the most insane crowd that next to WrestleMania that I've ever been around. So yeah, so we all kind of grew up in the same area, but it is. That whole area was a real cool melting pot of kind of like the different promotions. And I mean, the territories were still there. Vince hadn't gone on his blitzkrieg. His dad still, I don't know when did his dad sell to him, but it wasn't he hadn't done all the stuff he was going to do when Hulk Hogan came in and all that stuff. So it was still very territorial at that point in time.
That's true. That's true. I think he bought it in like 83 or something like that, like early 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and then he strapped the rocket to Hulk and off they went. So, like, I was looking at your bio, David, and you've written several books, and most of them seem to have little to nothing to do with pro wrestling. So I'm kind of like, what made you want to write a book about pro wrestling and why pro wrestling's Black World Champions? Like, what drew you to that?
I'll try to make the long story short. It came from, again, my family watched it. My older brother, Julian, and I grew up as kids watching professional wrestling. And he was the first person to write about pro wrestlers. His book was Black Stars of Professional Wrestling back in 1999. And it came about as he was, I forget whether he was working in a library at the time or whether he was teaching. But I know my brother spent a lot of years as a librarian. And so he was researching certain people and he noticed that it wasn't a lot of research. In 1998, I believe it was 98, Bobo Brazil died. And then JYD died in like June or something like that. And I think that just triggered my brother and he started writing about it. And that book, really kind of started everything off. And my brother passed in 2020, and I found his manuscript for Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions. And at the time, it was a small ebook. There was only about maybe 13 people in that particular book. And so I thought, wow, this would be a good way to pay some homage to my brother and just kind of update that book and put it back out. And that's sort of where it came from. I put out a second edition in 2022. And of course, there have been a few more champions. And so I put out this one in last year. And this one is, I have to give my brother credit for starting everything, but I could not say he helped me write this one. This is signature me all the way.
Well, my deepest condolences on the passing of your
Yes.
brother, and it's great that you took up the mantle that he started and ran with that. So is that the biggest difference between this third edition and the second edition? Is just additional champions that were added to the mix, or were there any more substantive changes than that?
Yes. I gave, in addition to the bios that he gave for everybody, I also listed their belts, of their major accomplishments. And this one has tag team champions as well. The first one just had the singular heavyweight champions. And by the way, this is just the people who won the world heavyweight title. I guess now there are some forerunners in there because there were people who led up to Ron Simmons winning the belt. So there are a couple of forerunners in there who did not technically have the belt from one of the major federations. But I think that their role was significant in leading up to Ron Simmons being able to become champion.
Yeah, you talk about, and in the book, you've got the Trailblazers section, which has people like Bobo Brazil, you mentioned, Bearcat Wright,
Yes.
Ernie Ladd. And I pull the curtain back completely for people. I didn't send David an email earlier today. I said, hey, there's like one guy missing from here. And you already mentioned him. So I kind of want to ask you about Junkyard Dog. We know he never held a world title. Wildly popular, especially in Mid-South and even in WWE. I mean, that whole WrestleMania 3 thing with the King Harley race and all that.
Yeah.
And so, like, I guess along those lines, what was your criteria for that section, like the Trailblazers, as to like, and I'm not obviously not criticizing you, but I'm just like, how come JYD wasn't in there or, somebody like that?
Yeah. And that's a fair question. It's really just a judgment call. Bearcat Wright was recognized as having a version of the belt. He won the WWA belt, and that being on I think they also went by the name of Big Time Wrestling, but being on the Pacific coast, they could have matches in Mexico and the Rock's family's promotion out in Samoa, and so they could kind of say, in Canada, of course, they could sort of say that they kind of had a claim to being a world title, although they were still not really. They were affiliated. They had just broken off from the NWA, but they were still basically affiliated with the NWA. So all of those folks held Art Thomas, Ernie Ladd, Bobo, they all held that belt. That's why, and that was the only criteria for them being included. And Ethel Johnson was included. She never had anything other than the women's colored title because that's all she was allowed to have as a singles wrestler. But she was able to team with June Byers and win the NWA Women's World Tag Team title. So I felt that was worthy enough to include her because it's not your fault. It's like, football, sports, and you can only play the opponent that's in your conference, so you can't really penalize them for that.
Got you. Rob, jump in here whenever you want, man. Otherwise, I'll just, me, I'll just keep talking until you shut me up. So,
Well, I'm just now learning that there was an NWA Women's Tag Team Championship. So this is just listening to you has been educational.
Yeah, along those lines, the women's, I'm actually glad to see that there are a lot more titles for women now, because at one time they only had their world title. Now they have a current tag team title now and a women's intercontinental title. And I think AEW also has, different belts for their women as well. And that's real progress is being made.
Yeah, TNA does also. They have TNA's had a women's tag team title for longer than anyone else, actually.
I guess I'm wondering, and I know, you've talked about your brother's influence and that sort of thing, but was there a specific reason you wanted to focus on world champions rather than taking a broader view of significant Black pro wrestlers, or why was it? And I'm just kind of curious, why world champions? What was that? Why was that the focus?
Well, it's still to really stay in harmony with his theme. That was what it was all about. And he was originally, that idea came from, he was originally commissioned from one of the magazines at the time. I believe it was Kayfabe magazine. They commissioned him to write an article on the Black world champions. And so that's where the whole ebook came from and everything. I wanted to be true to that. His first book, Black Stars of Professional Wrestling, it basically highlighted every Black person who suited up in the ring at that time. I mean, so JYD is in there. Butch Reed, who was also highly popular. A lot of those guys. Ahmed Johnson, and I'm real fond of Ahmed. I'm actually trying to push to get Ahmed into the WWE Hall of Fame. Ahmed was the first Black Intercontinental Champion. And we kind of discussed it.
Yeah.
He's not in this book because this book is just on the world champions. And he said, well, I won the USWA belt, but USWA was not really considered one of the major federations at that time. I think they were trying to be, because when Jerry Lawler unified, I believe it was world class heavyweight title with the AWA to create the USWA, the AWA pulled out shortly after Lawler won the belt and they stopped recognizing him. So it kind of went back to where it was before it even got launched off the ground. So yeah, it's just really, just a judgment call. It wasn't trying to, and it really couldn't put everybody in that book. When we're talking, if we're just going to talk about world champions, then Godfather won that belt, Coco Beware, well, then I have to put everybody in there. That's kind of diminishing.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned Ahmed Johnson, because we've got this thing on the Attitude of Aggression we've been doing for a few years now, call it the Big Five Project. We're going chronologically through the Big Five pay-per-views, and we started at WrestleMania 1, and we just got through what did we just do, Rob? King of the Ring 96, right? And that's ironically enough where Ahmed won the Intercontinental Championship for the first time and became the first Black IC champion. So that when you were mentioning that, I was like, yep, this sounds very familiar. Speaking of world champions, though, I know we're talking about some of the guys who didn't make the cut, but man, your book is a literal who's who of the very best Black wrestlers, world champions or otherwise, of all time. And I want to get to of course, the big names in a little bit, but who are some of the lesser known champions you have in your book, which you would suggest that anybody who's reading your book should pay special attention to some of these guys who are maybe not household names, but you really think that they deserve some extra attention?
One that comes to mind is Jonathan Gresham. He was a title holder in Ring of Honor, and actually his wife, I think, because of their TNA affiliation and that with WWE, I think that she was on WWE's, probably the NXT card, Jordan Grace. He I think he can get a lot. Jonathan Gresham is really somebody that has been overlooked. I mean, the guy has tremendous talent. I think he falls into that area of being one of the shorter wrestlers, and that's what tends to hurt. You know, the guys, if you're 6'6" and 300 pounds, you're going to get a push regardless, just because of your size.
Yeah.
Gresham is an outstanding technical wrestler, and I think he gets overlooked
Yes.
because of his size.
Actually, I was there that day where he won the Ring of Honor World Title at Final Battle, and he's excellent.
Isn't he like 5'4" or something? I mean, like you're
Something
saying, he's
like
a
that. Yeah, I mean,
smallish guy.
yeah, he is, and again, and so that gets in the way, honestly, because I mean, if you're talking like just best pure technical wrestlers right now, I'd say top 5 over the last 5 and 10 years for sure.
Absolutely.
And Jordan's been on such a roll, you know,
Yeah.
going from NXT now the main roster. I mean, she's going to overshadow a lot of stuff right now. But yeah, he's a great one. Any other ones in the book that you think stand out, David?
I've mentioned Jay Lethal before. I think Jay sort of gets overlooked. I love his mic skills to go along with his in-ring performance. With the women, I would say Awesome Kong. I don't know if she's still active now, but she was definitely somebody that people should pay more attention to as well.
Yeah, she was known as Karma when she was in WWE.
Yes.
Right.
So
And
I think
go ahead, Rob.
I think she's not retired fully. I think she occasionally pops up and does a spot here or there, but she's not full time anymore for sure.
And her career kind of got cut a little bit short because she got pregnant, right? I mean, that's kind of what
While she was in
really.
WWE.
Yeah, it's like, well, that shouldn't cut your career. I mean, look at Naomi right now, and you know, she's working it while she's out on maternity leave. But it was a different time frame, you know. That was
Yeah.
a totally different thing. Going to the other extreme, David, you know, talking about the more well-known people. I mean, what, in your opinion, which of the Black world champions have made the biggest impact to the sport? I mean, some names are certainly going to jump to mind right away, but I just wanted you to comment on that. Like some of the bigger names, you know, who do you think has made the biggest impact to pro wrestling from, you know, the guys who are in your book?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody probably knows Ron Simmons, The Rock, but guys like Bobby Lashley, I think Bobby has done a lot for this business. Bobby has been world champion in a couple of different federations. He's been a champion
Yeah.
almost everywhere he goes. And so I think he's still underrated, underappreciated to a certain extent. Shelton Benjamin. Shelton is in the book because as a member of the Hurt Business, not as a singles title holder, but Shelton is also an excellent wrestler. I was a little disappointed with the lack of a push that Kofi Kingston received, and I kind of think Big E as well didn't appreciate the way that Kofi had to fight to get the title. I mean, they sent him through the gauntlet, which kind of made him worthy and deserving of it. And it's kind of unceremonious to have your world champion lose the belt in like 10 seconds. And I understand Brock Lesnar is Brock, but come on now, you're diminishing the belt itself when you do that.
So, like Rob was mentioning, he was at Final Battle when Gresham won the title. I was in LA that night when they debuted on Fox, and Brock beat Kofi in 10 seconds. And it was, you know, the disappointment in that arena was pretty palpable because, like, a lot of people were hoping maybe Kofi's going to pull this massive upset and just defeat him to Brock like that. And I understand, you know, you're going for a big rating because it's the debut on Fox and all that kind of crap. But man, that just did not, like you're saying, David, because everything that they made Kofi go through for Kofi Mania to lead up to that, and then to just have it taken away that remarkably quickly, was so underwhelming. It just left such a bad taste. And I know Rob shaking his head. I know you hated the damn thing, Rob. So, you know, and I've got the shot of your book, David, up on the screen with us. Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions 3rd edition. It's available on Amazon at any other great booksellers out there. So please pick up your copy. Support this great work by David. But go ahead, Rob. Vent about Kofi, man. I know you want to. I could see it in your face, you know.
Put us with it. There are a few booking decisions that I would say the majority of Black wrestling fans are just not going to let go, and that's one of them.
That's definitely one.
That's one. The Booker and Hunter WrestleMania 19 is another one. That's probably number one on the list.
Hold that thought, because I actually have something specific about that I want to ask David and you as well, Rob, because I'm the middle-aged white guy here, so like my opinion is really kind of irrelevant to all this stuff. But
Yeah,
all I'm doing is just running the show behind the scenes,
look,
But
just and look, I have heard people who are kind of neutral observers explain, try to give a logical explanation as to why Kofi and Brock went the way it did, because they were short on TV time, because the other stuff was the Rock was out there for like a half hour, and ate up all the time, so they had to do it fast and all this kind of stuff. And look, you can give me every logical explanation. You can even if it makes sense, I'm still going to just look at you like, really, like, no, just no.
not sit well with virtually anybody except probably Vince and the sponsors are like, great, yeah, awesome, fantastic, let's move on. But and I want to kind of segue into that, talk about some of the iconic wrestling moments involving Black World Champions, because I've posted a couple of things about this interview, and there are two of the moments that I kind of posted stand out to me. Of course, Ron Simmons winning the World Championship. That's probably number one, because that's when it happened. That's when the World Championship. Kofi Mania is right up there as well. I mean, like you were saying, David, everything Kofi was put through, the gauntlet he had to run through, and even getting the New Day and the Usos involved, like that tag team gauntlet match where the Usos, these two huge rivals, who I remember the Usos just looking at the New Day and just nodding and walking away and forfeiting the match as this ultimate sign of respect to Kofi. So Kofi Mania was right up there. And I think like the other one that stands out to me is certainly Sasha and Bianca main eventing WrestleMania. Because, yeah, we're talking behind the scenes, David. There's a conversation about, are the women going to get a shot to main event WrestleMania this year, one of the nights? And it's like, it'd be nice if they would, but yeah, who do you bump out of that spot? You don't have a Sasha Bianca type of match. I mean, maybe you get one between now and April, but obviously those are the big ones that stand out to me. I suspect you agree with a lot of that. But like, what other moments really stand out for you as far as like, big time moments with Black World Champions, whether they're men, women, tag team, or I mean, you can even throw out King of the Ring, King Booker and all that kind of stuff. But what kind of stands out to you as far as like big time moments with Black pro wrestling champions?
I think Bianca and Jade winning the titles, tag team titles, that's something that stood out to me. Of course, Naomi, when she won, I think it was something that she deserved for a while, because she has just been a workhorse, and I'm actually glad to see that the heel turn with her. I think it sort of helped her career out a lot, because not that Glow wasn't good, but I mean, I think the heel turn added another dimension to her and kind of drew in a little more fan base to her, I think. So yeah, those were some of the moments that kind of stood out to me. Booker T's 5-time WCW championship was always something that was great. I mean, and Booker T was also first African American WCW television champion as well, and I think he won the television championship like 5 times. So his reign, his reign is just phenomenal. His career at WCW definitely is something that stands on its own.
Yeah, he was the last champion on the last night before Vince and Shane, when they sold that night in Panama, Florida. It was Booker T. I mean, are there some underrated moments that have happened that, stuff that you look at? I know you talk about Bianca and Jade and Booker T's reign, but are there some like ones that you think like kind of fly under the radar with, I mean, even if they're not, involving world champions, but just African American wrestlers in general? I mean, there's just stuff that really stands out to you that you think kind of flies under the radar a little bit?
Well, I think not to jump in, but like Butch Reed, Ron Simmons when they were NWA World Tag Team Champions.
Doom, when they were Doom.
Yeah.
They're in your book, David. They're one of the champions you talk about, and kind of how, and I like, you describe how woman got involved, Nancy Benoit, before, I said his name, get over it. that sort of thing when she was there and how she became the manager and how they were. And I like how you described it because they were wearing masks, but everybody knew who Doom was back then. It's like, well, your roster of African American wrestlers is not exactly deep, Jim Crockett. So we kind of know who these guys are.
Right.
But yeah, I like that, Rob. They were an underrated. I mean, they beat the Steiners. They were involved with, matches against the Road Warriors and all this other stuff. So I like that call. Yeah. Anything like that, David? I mean, I think that's a good shout to Doom there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm trying to think about some things to keep it positive. A lot of the things that sort of stood out was like the negative images, but I'm glad to see people move away from uh the Kamala, the Abdullah the Butcher, the Savages, the Crime Time, even recently. I mean, well, actually, even Street Profits is not really negative, but it's still talking street level. And black performers can be more than that. And that's one of the things. That's just what really kind of stands out to me. And I don't really want to go into the negative aspect of it, but I'd like to see people playing different roles instead of the stereotypical roles all the time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, and we'll talk about one of the more controversial moments in a little bit because I don't think you can talk about this area and not get into some of that stuff as we go along. But before we get into that, let's talk about the rise of women's wrestling in general because you mentioned Bianca and you mentioned Jade and we talked about Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, whatever you want to call her, and Bianca at WrestleMania. And it's like I remember when the women's revolution began, you had Team Bad was one of the three factions that were at the center of it all. When everything changed and it went from divas to hey, we're going back to women's wrestling. How important? And you look at that, Rob, and correct me if it was Naomi, Sasha, and was it Tamina? Was
Yes.
that Team Bad?
Yeah.
So you look at that and how they were at the center of this explosion of this influx of women's talent, just the changing of the industry. So how important do you think that black female wrestlers have been as far as this push to getting women's wrestling to a new level of popularity where we're actually having conversations like, hey, could the women main event WrestleMania? It's happened before. Could they do it again? So how important do you think black female wrestlers have been as far as pushing that forward?
I think they've been very instrumental. That was definitely something that Sasha Mercedes Moné definitely wanted to do. I mean, she was very serious about the craft and wanted people to take women's wrestling seriously. And so that's one thing that she really pushed and really brought to the forefront. And because of Team Bad, I mean, they were right along, everybody was thinking along the same lines. And to have, of course, Charlotte Flair, because she understands the business and she was like, yeah, so she respects it too. So, because that's another part of it too. You've got to have the good competition. So there were enough female wrestlers who were really genuinely committed to the craft. Bayley, they were committed to it. And so that's what really made the change come about. And all the women, yeah, I mean, they're beautiful women and they know that, but they wanted to be respected for their talent in the ring. And yeah, the black females played a big part in that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bailey as well. And I mean, where's women's wrestling at without that iconic match between Sasha and Bailey at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn? I mean, that really showed a lot of people, and this is like allegedly the developmental area. NXT was developmental back in those days, but it showed, hey, these girls can really, really go. And so when Sasha came up along with Charlotte and Becky, it made a huge, huge difference. There have been a lot of significant and great black female champions. Who do you feel is the most significant as far as the female black champions that so far? I mean, there's been a few, but I'm just wondering, does one stand out as being like the leader in the clubhouse sort of thing?
To me, I'm seeing a tie between Sasha, Mercedes Moné, and Bianca Belair. I think those are two of the top women, two of the most talented. And yeah, I'm just seeing a tie between those two.
Oh, that's fair enough. Do you look at Mercedes as kind of like the leader in the industry right now? I mean, obviously she's got more titles than I even knew existed at this point in time. And I don't know. I mean, Do you think that's a good thing for the industry, or is that, are we just kind of like, okay, this is a bit much at this point in time? But how do you feel about Mercedes?
Think she's I think she's definitely one of the leaders, if not the leaders, at this point in time. I do kind of have, like you, I do kind of have mixed emotions about winning so many titles now, because if you continue to do that, I don't want it to become a caricature of herself. And now it's just kind of like, okay, it can go into being something other than, at first is, a great feat. Now it's like, okay, you're just going after every little thing. And I don't want it to turn into something, a joke, like a 24/7 title, something like that. But yeah, but as far as her talent goes, she's phenomenal. She's an excellent performer. And I think that she's probably leading the pack right now. And I
Rob,
believe
you agree with
AEW is
that? I mean, I
holding
know
back
you watch
probably.
Yeah, and well, I think honestly, her going to a second company and also, basically, rising to the top there as well, I think that just adds a whole nother kind of level to her career. Yeah, because it's one thing to do it in one place, and because look, every wrestling company has its own kind of way of doing things, and then going to another place entirely, and basically you're being, you know, having the same kind of success or a similar level of success. Yeah, and look, and that's not to take away from anyone who only works for one place, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with only work if you only work for WWE your whole career, if you only work for AEW your whole career. I mean, that's not necessarily a knock on you, but if I mean, like doing it in both places, and then I mean, yeah, I mean that it's just because it's two different ways of doing things, right? I mean, so I mean, if you were to ask me amongst like black women wrestlers right now, yeah, I would I would because of that. Now, look, Bianca could go on and she could look, she could go on. She's still got a good, you know, however long she wants to do it. Really, I mean, she could be around a whole another 10 years still. Even if even if she only does in WWE, she could go on to do enough there to eventually, to be that. But now look, I put them, they're 1 and 2. I mean, honestly, it just really just to me it comes down to just how just how your own kind of viewpoint, really. But I think I put them at 1 and 2.
I mean, her
Well,
winning
Naomi
all
too.
those titles certainly yeah, Naomi too. I mean, when she gets, I mean, if Jim could keep his hands off of her, that would help, I mean, but obviously that's not happening. No, I think like from the standpoint of Sasha, Mercedes, whatever, for her heel character, being this belt collector really helps. Because it does piss people off. I mean, like for people like me who are like, oh man, that sort of thing. So it does get people riled up, and that's a good thing. David, let me ask you, women's wrestling in general, just the entire segment of women's wrestling in general. What's your outlook on that? Do you feel good about where they are pessimistic or middle of the road? How do you feel about women's wrestling in general?
I feel good about it in general. I mean, because as I mentioned earlier, they have more titles, they have more to work for now. Because it can be discouraging when there's only one belt, so it's only one person can be the king of the hill, if you will. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think these additional opportunities is going to make it more competitive for the women and make them want to stick around and try to work harder for a world title. Yeah, I'm really happy with the direction it's going in.
Now, yeah, I think the secondary titles were way overdue, and AEW was the first one to do it with the TBS. So, there you go, Rob. There's a compliment. I'm giving AEW a compliment there. Yeah, them creating the TBS championship was a really smart move on their part, and the copying that was well overdue. But you look at what it's done for like someone like Chelsea Green, who gets the United States Championship, and is her popularity has soared to ridiculous levels where she, now Matt Cardona's Chelsea's husband instead of the other, instead of the other way around. So that's been a big deal. Let me move to the last third of your book because you dedicated that to tag teams, and I know we kind of mentioned tag teams before. Um, and like to me, it seems like, and I preface this because we've gone through that Big Five project I was talking about. So we went through like the golden era of tag team wrestling, where you had like Doom, you had the Hart Foundation, you had the British Bulldogs, Demolition, Legion of Doom, all these iconic tag teams. And then, you kind of got to the point where we're dealing with the Godwins and, some of these other guys, and you're like, this is so good. And it's certainly not that bleak right now, but Do you feel that tag team wrestling in general is kind of a lost art form under the current product?
Yes. We certainly don't have those iconic tag teams like the Steiner Brothers, Doom, Harlem Heat, Road Warriors. I mean, Ming and the Barbarian. We just don't have those kinds of tag teams anymore. I hope it comes back. I'm hopeful, but right now, no, I don't see it.
Do you have any ideas how we can get tag team wrestling back to that point? Is it purely talent, or is it just a matter of how? Is it talent? Is it stories? Is it how it's presented? Do you have any thoughts on how we can get tag team wrestling back to a much better place where it deserves to be?
It's both. It's the talent to deliver, but it's also the storyline, the marketing. They have to build those feuds again. I mean, because, and that's what I was talking about, even like a guy like Jay Lethal, his mic skills. I mean, you've got to be able to sell to the audience and build a feud that way. But if you just come out there, hey, I'm going to kick your butt, that's not the same as saying I'm going to lay the smack down on you. So, you got to be a little more colorful, and you just have to build those feuds. And if they build feuds properly, they can put tag teams together. And even if it's an unlikely tag team, a RK Bro, something like that, where Randy's clearly like, why am I with this guy? But even something like that can even draw interest in the tag team division. And I think it really comes down to the storylines and the guys being able to, and women being able to deliver.
Now, Rob, what do you think about that, man? And I know this isn't your interview, but I'm
Yeah,
kind of curious your thoughts on tag team wrestling, and because we've talked about this.
yeah. Well, because look at, like, if you look at the women's tag team division in WWE, I mean, it got revitalized over the past year because they put big name people in it, right? I mean, they put Charlotte and Alexa, and now Rhea and Io, and Asuka and Kyrie, and now Nia Jax is in there with Lash Legend now. They woke up the division by putting big name people in it. So I think, honestly, if we're talking, so right now, I think that's what you got to kind of do on the men's side. I think you're going to need to get a few of your big name men and team them up and just put them over there for right now, because otherwise you're just kind of waiting for the next Road Warrior, the next Hardy Boys, you know, like, you can't manufacture that. Those guys, they happen when they happen, but you can't sit around waiting for it either, because I mean, it could be another 10 years before somebody like that shows up, right? So, and you just don't know, right? I mean, Hawk and Animal basically showed up one day, like they were bouncers, and and they were discovered being being biker bar bouncers, and then they ended up in the wrestling business, right? And so you can't just sit back and wait and hope for that to happen again with somebody else, right? But until something like that does happen, I mean, then yeah, I think you got to take some of your bigger name people and just move them over there. Because, I mean, for example, like RK Bro, right? Having Randy Orton be part of that team made all the difference in the world.
Like, it's either that or
Yeah.
kind of like what David was alluding to. You got to have the story, because what was it, 2, 3 years ago? That Sami Zayn Usos match was the first tag team match to main event a WrestleMania since WrestleMania 1.
Yes.
And it was all based on the story involved in that whole thing, and the Sami Zayn, his journey, which was kind of similar to Kofi Mania, but not exactly. But so yeah, I mean, even if, and I agree with you, Rob, it would be great to get something like the Mega Powers, together again, and revamp that storyline with Roman and somebody exploding, that sort of thing. But short of that, you need the right story to do that. But I want to get back to the tag teams and ask David, I mean, when I think about, the tag team champions, black tag team champions who really stand out, like the two that jump to mind immediately, of course, are Harlem Heat and the New Day. Are there others that I mean, you've talked, I mean, are there others that I've missed that you put up there? I mean, like the Soul Connection, you talked about them in your book, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, of course. And I didn't realize till reading your book, just these two guys did not get along at all. And then, reading through your book, I'm like, okay, I thought they were better buds than that, but apparently not. But are there other teams that really stand out to you as far as black tag team world champions, other than Harlem Heat and New Day are kind of on different levels from everybody else, I think.
Yeah, I really liked. Oh gosh, it was the guy. I'm drawing a blank now. That they were in AEW, and Billy Gunn was their manager.
Oh no, the Acclaimed.
You think,
The
yeah,
Acclaimed, yes, yes. I really liked those two guys. I think they were a little underrated because they had a huge following at one time, at least a big pop when they came out. And I think
Yeah.
Billy Gunn being with them sort of helped them, and their AEW's tag team division really seemed to be pretty good at that time. Billy Gunn and the Guns and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and I mean they
Yep.
had some pretty good tag teams at one time. And I think the Acclaim kind of stood out to me as, a couple of black tag teams during that time.
Yeah, AEW's tag team division was fire for a while because you had the Bucks. Every time the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers would get together, it was just like this, cataclysmic, massive match that was just, they just tried to one up each other every single time. And it was always awesome. But like you're saying, you had the Acclaimed, you had Private Party was, there's another team that was in your book. I liked them, but they always felt like Street Profit ripoffs to me a little bit. But you had that tag team division in AEW when those first couple years was as close as you're going to get to something really spectacular in recent times. But go ahead, Rob. I didn't mean to cut you off there, bud.
oh, no problem. Because I'm trying to think now. So, we mentioned Doom, and then of course, and again, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson I guess they were the prototype or I don't know if they were the first black tag team champions, but they're the ones.
They were.
I think they're the ones that we all kind of look to as being the original model. And then I don't think the Nation of Domination ever won those, but
I don't think
and
so.
they weren't really a tag team, but at one point they were at various points in their existence they were an all black faction. Now, of course, they had other members like Owen Hart and Savio Vega at different times, but there were times where as a group, and then of course there's a New Day, and then well, Kofi Kingston he was tag champion with R-Truth at one point also.
Yep,
that's true. Yeah.
And look, Kofi's one of those guys. If we're talking about just kind of tag team wrestlers or tag team partners of the past 10 or 15 years, I mean, he's been tag champ with multiple people, with Truth, with Evan Bourne, of course, with New Day. He's one of those guys that just, I think that does that's one thing that doesn't get talked about much because, I mean, there are guys in wrestling who were they're great partners. Like Bobby Eaton was tag team champ with a bunch of different people. Arn Anderson was a bunch of different people. And, I think Cesaro or, Claudio, whatever you want to call him, was tag team champion with a bunch of different people. And so I think somebody like Kofi, for all the things Kofi has done, that's one of the things that kind of doesn't get talked about as much because, he was a tag team champion with so many different people.
When you mentioned the Nation of Domination, that actually reminded me of a tag team that I thought was phenomenal in ECW, and actually it started off in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the Gangsters. New Jack
Yes,
and
yes.
Mustafa, because the connection there was D'Lo Brown, because D'Lo was originally with New Jack and Mustafa, and that's where he copied. That's where Nation of Domination came from. It was basically copying what New Jack and Mustafa did and D'Lo in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Yeah, it was a much more TV friendly version, I would say. Because
New Jack wasn't known for his wholesome family entertainment. That's
not at all.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they were heels, and Jim Cornette ran Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and basically the story is he basically just told them just go out and say some stuff to piss off the white.
Yeah, they were good. They were good at that. Yeah, they were good at that. Speaking of pissing off white people, let's talk about this a little bit because I'm not doing my job here, David, if I don't, and for you too, Rob, if I don't at least address the issue of racism in wrestling. Because we know it's been a huge problem for many years. And Rob, this is where I'm going to tie in the Triple H Booker T controversy at WrestleMania 19, which may be the low point in this whole conversation about racism in wrestling. Is that the lowest point that you guys can think of as far as where we reached rock bottom as far as the racism issue? I mean, David, you mentioned a lot of stuff. The portrayal of like Kamala as a Savage, and some of the, I think like Harlem Heat used to come to the ring wearing, prison chains and shit like that. And, that's not cool. That's wrong. But the Triple H Booker T thing was really bad because they not only did they play up the racism angle as part of the
Yes.
angle, but then they didn't have Booker T prevail in the end. They had Triple H go over, which just sat as wrong with people as maybe the Kofi Brock situation comes close. But to me, it was always the Triple H Booker T issues. Is that the low point, you guys think, or did we sink lower at some other point in time beyond that?
For me, I'd say for me that was the worst because, like you said, they did a whole storyline leading up to that match where I mean, they weren't basically, well, they played up the kind of race angle. Like they didn't come out and explicitly say black, white, but everybody knew what, when they say people like you don't win world championships, everybody knew what,
Yeah.
everybody could read the subtext there, right?
Right. Right.
And
It
so,
wasn't very subtle. Not subtle at
no.
all.
So if you're going to do that, here's the thing. I mean, and look, because in wrestling, look, yes, there are controversial angles. There are things that happen to push buttons, right? Okay, and so if you're going to do that, if you're going to make a big storyline of all that, and then pay it off at WrestleMania, the black guy needs to win.
Right.
That's one where and look, Triple H could have won the title back a month or two later or whatever, right? But that particular time, that match should have only gone one way. and there's no explaining out of it really. And so for me, yeah, because look, as much as the Kofi thing burns us up, at least he got to win the title. He got to hold it for 6 months. He went back home to Ghana as the WWE World Champion and got celebrated by people in his home country. Okay,
He had some good title defenses.
so
Let's not sugar. I mean, he had some good
Yeah.
wins.
yeah, and so at least he got to do that. And look, they even paid off that 10-year-old Randy Orton stupid angle, right? He finally got to beat Randy Orton, right? And pay
Yep.
that. So at least Kofi got to do some things. At least he got to win the belt and he got to do a bunch of things. Booker didn't even get to win it. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
And with
What do you
that,
think,
he
David?
didn't even get to win a belt that he had already held, because that was essentially the WCW world title. He never held the WWE championship, which Vince McMahon has a way of doing. If somebody's a champion in another federation, like Ron Simmons, I think Ric Flair was the only person from WCW, somebody who wasn't part of his organization, that he allowed to hold the championship. Made Harley Race the king of the ring. Come on. That's Harley Race. It wouldn't even let him
And
have
then
the title.
Harley didn't need that.
Yeah.
Harley didn't need any of that. I mean, Harley should have got it, but it's do you guys think that the situation has improved over the years? I mean, on the surface, it looks like it has because we've got more. You had Kofi Mania. Bobby Lashley won the world championship. He, to the surprise of many, myself included, he beat Drew in that rain delayed WrestleMania 37, where I thought, oh, they're going to give Drew the time, give him his big moment in the sun, which they finally have now paid off 4 or 5 years later. But you know, do you guys see that? Do you guys think the situation has improved? Or are there still racial issues and overtones underlying the surface? All right, David, you start this one.
Yeah, man,
Rob's going to think of. I could tell Rob's thinking. I can
He's
see the
thinking of
smoke
it.
coming out of his head. Yeah.
I think it's still there somewhat, and I think the promoters are still trying to figure it out, because I would even say that Swerve Strickland's run in AEW as their champion didn't really seem to be a great run in terms of having a series of signature wins over people, and it's like now he's just totally removed from it. So it's almost like, so did you give him the belt just to say you gave a black guy the belt? It almost looks that way, because he doesn't even seem. I think they're trying to put him now back into title content, into the picture at least, and that's where I think he belongs. I mean, you should, when a person ascends to that level, they should not drop down to mid card. That's the way I feel about it. Whatever race you are, when you're at a main eventer, you need to stay a main eventer.
That's a good one. And, Rob knows by that point in time, AEW had pissed me off pretty well to the point where they'd alienated me. But like he lost the title back to Bryan Danielson. It was supposed to be like Danielson's retirement match or something, right, Rob?
Yeah,
Or
well, I think
something like that. Or
it was career versus title, and then so then and he lost that there, and so now he is kind of he is back challenging for the world title now, but he had a stretch there where he wasn't. And I guess for me, well, okay, big picture, it is absolutely better, right? I mean, you can't like the last 5 years, 5 or 6 years in particular. Like you can't look at the last. I mean, the last 5 or 6 years are just leaps and bounds better than probably any other time. So big picture, it is absolutely better. And now, I mean, it's just so. I mean, kind of like in real life, it can be fluid, and there are times where you can look at where there are times where everything looks great, and then there are times where you kind of look around like, okay, what are we doing? And so it kind of comes and goes. It's almost I would say it's almost situational now. Big picture, definitely better. On on the micro level, it's very situational. And I guess the thing about it, you can like us as fans, like we can never let up. Is what I would like when you're in any type of when you're taking any type of activist position on anything, you can never let it. Right. Even when things look good, you can never let up because I mean, things can go in the other direction really fast if you're not vigilant, basically. So,
and to your point, there are many, and you've heard this as well. We've all heard this that the belief that Hunter is still engaging in I'd say a more quiet or subtle form of racism. David, do you agree with that? Do you think do you see signs that Hunter is still kind of it's not overt. It's much more under the surface sort of thing. That's what a lot of people say. Do you see that in WWE?
Yes, I'm not convinced that Hunter really cares much at all. I think he'll do what he thinks will make a dollar. I mean, he's done some things even before the Booker T controversy that sort of led up to that. I mean, you guys go back to DX, those DX days, and their spoof over the Nation of Domination coming out in blackface in the year 2000. Really? You're going to come out in blackface? That's and not feel any remorse about it, any shame about it. Okay, yeah, we can get over and convince the audience. I mean, and that's just I mean, and maybe that's him, and if that's okay with him, I'll do anything that'll sell. That's fine. But I just question his decision making because especially if we look at the Booker T match at that WrestleMania, he could have called it in the ring and let Booker T win because he's made controversial decisions before. Him and the Click, when Hall and Nash left, he came out when he wasn't supposed to and got suspended for that. But you made that decision to do that. So, I mean, you couldn't make this decision in the ring? Come on now. I wish they had somebody else in charge. I think he can recognize the talent, but I don't think that Hunter is really interested in giving the push behind the black wrestlers that they need to be successful. That's what he's looking for. If you're saying well, we don't give them the push because they don't sell the tickets, well, you need to put them in better storylines. I mean, if everything is a stereotypical, the same thing over and over that we've seen before, you're in charge of the creative. You're supposed to be more creative and create
Right.
better storylines.
And
well,
I mean,
now,
I'll play devil's advocate with you guys here because somebody's going to say, well, look at Jade Cargill. She's the women's champion right now, and look at the push she's getting. And of course, I can come back and say, yeah, but look how long it took to get her there. That sort of thing. I mean, why did we wait so long? We finally had to turn her heel. And maybe that I think that's better for Jade's personality as a heel than as a face, that sort of thing. But go ahead, Rob. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just
okay.
like, I have a tendency to agree with David to a certain extent. I mean, do I think Hunter's trying to be better? Yeah, I think he's trying to be better because he hears the voices a lot more than he did when he was standing behind Vince. Vince didn't give a crap, but I think Hunter actually does hear some of that. I don't know if he's implementing it as quickly as he should, but that's my take on it. I don't know what you think, Rob.
Well, I guess that's kind of why I said it's situational. Because she is the women's world champion today. I guess personally, I didn't like how they just had her lose at SummerSlam. So, I I guess for me, if they were going to have her win the title anyway, then I thought that was the time to do it. but again, she is the women's world champion today. It's just, I guess, I mean, so much to me, so much of it is situational, and because, and look, now we got three guys coming to the main roster now. You know, Trick, Oba, and Javon Evans, and you know, at, at least two out of the three better be main eventers, right? I mean, I was looking at, you never bat 1,000, right? Somebody always doesn't make it, right? But I would say two out of those three should be, and
Well,
you
and to your point, Rob, what you're talking about, and David, you can jump in here as well. Whatever issues Hunter may have, Sean certainly does not have those issues because he has pushed black
yeah,
wrestlers to the moon in NXT. I mean, you've got Obafemi, the ruler and the destroyer of worlds, and Javon Evans, who you look at this guy and you say, wow, he's so thin, but they have made him into a megastar. Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes. You look at these guys that have been developed down in NXT. And I guess we can hope that Sean's influence rubs off on his best friend a little bit more and says, hey, I think it is because like Rob's saying, they brought all three of these guys. I mean, they got to the point with Oba, they're like, all right, look, we can't legitimately have him drop the belt to anybody because it's not believable. So just leave the belt in the ring. And it's like, okay, it works for me. So what do you think, David? I mean, do you think Sean seems to get it, and NXT seems to be a real breeding ground for like trying to push this new kind of approach forward a little bit?
You're absolutely right. And I totally agree 100%. I think Shawn Michaels he's developing the talent across the board. And if he sees the talent in somebody, he's going to help them. And I think he took a special interest in Carmelo Hayes because Carmelo is, a shorter guy like Sean. So, I think he sort of took, a special interest in him because he's probably reminds him of himself, a guy who has the talent, but kind of can get overlooked because of your size. Yeah, and I really hope that his influence can rub off on Triple H.
And all those guys have tons of charisma, lots of charisma. And that goes, you could be short in stature and you might not be the greatest on the mic, but man, if you got charisma, that'll carry you a long way. Because, we've talked about on this show, people who we call charisma vacuums, David, who just like, man, look at that body. He is built. He's talented. But gosh, it's just this black hole of nothing when you look at the charisma factors and that sort of thing. I'm not going to name any names. We're not going to do that here. I want to move into kind of get your thoughts on the industry as a whole right now. Are you, because we talk about Hunter, and some of this I think is not his fault because, ever since they did this deal with TKO, they're really driving the profitability factor of things. Decisions are being made to make money, to maximize profitability, to put on these big mega events. You're looking at, for God's sake, the Royal Rumble is going to be in Saudi Arabia in a few weeks. WrestleMania next year is going to be in Saudi Arabia. It's all about money. I mean, you can try and justify it any way you want, but it is all about money. So I guess I'm wondering from you, David, are you optimistic about where the industry's heading? Are you pessimistic? How do you feel about this? Because there does seem to be, I mean, some of the storylines are great, but there is this seemingly big push to maximize. I mean, you look at ticket prices for WrestleMania. Although I will say the tickets for WrestleMania 42 aren't nearly as bad as last year. So now I got to rethink my priorities. But anyway, what do you think? How do you feel about the industry in general?
I think it's moving in a positive direction. I certainly think it has the potential. And I mean, you're absolutely right about everything comes down to money. And I know money is going to drive a lot of the decisions that they make. Basically, Saudi Arabia having a crown jewel, basically their own title and championship and everything. I would like to see, and if there are there any Saudi wrestlers themselves who are out there? I don't know of any.
The only one was Mansoor a few years ago, and they pushed him like he would come in and didn't he win like one of the Royal Rumbles that or the Battle Royals or whatever the hell they had.
And it was funny because he even said that as part of his deal, like he couldn't lose, right? Because
not in Saudi Arabia, he couldn't lose, but everywhere else he was just jobbing out everywhere. Yeah.
But I think he's the only one I know of. I mean, but I'll throw this out there that because I mean they're expanding and just going to so many different places now to do shows and whatnot. Well, so since we're talking about black people, they've never, as far as I know, they've never done any type of tour in Africa. I mean, they go to they go to Japan, they go over to Europe, they go to Saudi Arabia, they go to Australia. You know, I don't know that they've ever gone into South America. I mean, I know they've gone into Central America for sure, but there's
I mean,
never
like
been.
Puerto Rico, they're going to go
Yes,
back there, but like why I think we mentioned this. Why are we having like Clash in Rio? You know, I mean, good God, have you ever seen anything that's done in Brazil? Those people lose their damn minds. So
yeah.
can
Well,
you
imagine if
imagine?
imagine something similar like when Ali and Frazier did the not Ali and Frazier, Ali and Foreman did the Rumble in the Jungle.
Yeah, in Zaire.
Imagine doing a wrestling show over there. Right. Imagine that. Imagine how big that could be. And to me, that's kind of untapped territory, to be honest. I mean, there's
Oh,
several
it is.
reasons from with African roots, but as far as I know, they've never done any type of tour or anything over there.
I mean, go to Monaco during F1 weekend and do something there in Morocco. I mean, good God. I mean, you get a million people to show up for that thing. I mean, there are, and I understand there may be logistical issues for doing it in some parts of Africa. Sure, like we know that, but some of the other places you would think, yeah, we could do something really cool here. That's a good point, Rob. And just to be clear, I love the international events. I think that they have been because those international crowds are they put us American crowds to shame a lot of the time. I mean, you look at the crowds in Lyon, France, or Puerto Rico, or any of these places, or even the stuff going on with Raw and SmackDown in where was it, Germany this last week.
Germany. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and just the crowd pop for Drew McIntyre showing up as a conquering hero in Scotland and that sort of stuff. And I love the international crowds, so I don't begrudge them that. I do have some concerns that some decisions are made in the interest of maximizing profitability and that sort of thing at the expense of everything else. And I don't know. What do you, David? What would you like to see done for the betterment of the industry as a whole?
I'd love to see better storylines written across the board for everybody. I think that all of the performers will be able to have a better chance if they have better storylines. I think sometimes the profit because they want the profit, it kind of hurts a lot of the creativity that you can do in terms of experimenting because, oh, well, we know this is going to sell, so let's push this angle. And yeah, and it might, but for how long? And you've got to come up with something more creative. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see better storylines. I think the opportunity is there. I do think black wrestlers are getting a lot more opportunity. So yeah, I think that's improved a lot. I believe if the storylines are there, the marketing is there, I think that the product will be much better and it will make money.
It will make money. It will make money. I'm about to wrap this up, but before I get to like the last question, I did want to ask you this. Obviously, not a black wrestler, Doctor of Thugonomics, though. Your thoughts on John Cena's retirement, his last run, and how did you feel about his last run and the way it ended up? Were you okay with him tapping out to Gunther and all that stuff? And just in general, how did you feel about John at the end there?
Coming back, I think again that was a way of maximizing profits on him, and because I know he's been in movies and in that uh Peacemaker, I think, is that TV show where he's playing a superhero.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think he's got a lot of acting projects going on, but I definitely think he's coming back. This was just to maximize on his popularity and let's sell it, and also to give Gunther a push as well.
I know John said it's not going to happen, but we know in this industry, never say
Never
never.
say
Rob's laughing because
never.
never say never. Shawn Michaels wrestled a couple of matches, so I mean, anything's possible. All right, David. Before I let you out of here, I got to put you on the spot, man. All right, you know how pro wrestling podcasters, fans, they all do this. Your Mount Rushmore. I want you to tell me who is on your Mount Rushmore of black world champions for the men and then for the women.
Ron Simmons, The Rock, Bobo Brazil, and Jay. For the women, wow, that's a little tougher. I would have to say I'm going to put Mercedes on there. She's done a lot. Jackie Moore, Jazz. That's three. Okay. And then I'd go with Awesome Kong for the fourth one. I think I know she's done a lot of work and won a lot of championships in Japan, more so than probably the American audience has realized. But yeah.
I like it. I love the list, man. That's great stuff. Well, look, David, I really appreciate you coming on the show, talking to us about all these great issues and talking about your book. Before I let you go, let people know where can they get in touch with you, like social media, any sort of contact information if they got questions for you about the book or anything like that. Just where can people get a hold of you, man?
Absolutely. Go to my website, davidlshabazz.com. All of my socials are linked there. My bio, my contact information, everything is there. You can purchase the book from my website as well. I'm not giving away, but I have autographed copies that you can get from me. Of course, you can get it from Amazon and Barnes and Noble and any other bookstores, and even some of the local bookstores as well. Definitely would be a Black History Month uh, gift to give to somebody. Since we're on the heels of Black History Month, I think it's a good time to look at that and celebrate the achievements and the accomplishments of the Black wrestlers to the sport.
That's right. That's coming up, and it would make a great gift as well. I just so you know, I gave you a glowing 5-star review, my friend. I love the book. It was fantastic. I learned a lot. I learned so much from reading the book and just kind of going through and like I said, stuff like I didn't realize that Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson like actually just wanted to beat the crap out of each other. That's things you learn from reading, that sort of thing. Rob, you got any final questions for David before we let him out of here, man?
So yeah, one more. So do you plan on writing anything else in the future, or?
Yes, we're actually working on, which I can say, but I'm actually working on a book with a professional wrestler that's kind of related, but not really. So that's in the works. And I put out my brother's book recently. I updated his Black Stars of Pro Wrestling. He put it out in 2019. And he passed in 2020, the following year. So he didn't really have a chance to promote it. And when he passed, the book just sort of disappeared, went out of print, and I'm struggling to try to get the rights of it from the publisher, because I saw it one time on Amazon. Somebody was selling one for like $700 because they knew it was out of print. And I'm like, that's not what he intended. He didn't want to intend to rip people off. I've just put that, I've just got the rights to it and everything, and put it back out. I put out a 4th edition because I added a few new people in there than what he had, because that was like 6 years ago. So yeah, that's out there as well. That's done, and I am working on another one, but you guys will know when I can talk about it.
Hey, David, look, Rob and I do stuff on the UFO and UAP side of the fence, so we know all about keeping secrets and keeping our mouth shut when we have to. So, that's that sort of thing. Rob, you got anything else for David before we let him out of here, man?
No, man. Just thanks for coming on. It's been a lot of fun, man.
Thank you
Yeah.
both. I really
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much, David.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to your future projects, man. Thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you soon, David.
All right. Thank you.
Simmons goes to the ropes. They got some leverage. And Vader dropped it all 448 right on the chest of Ron Simmons as all the air rushes out of the challenger's body. The champion back up. Back in control is Big Van Vader. In this hard-hitting battle for the heavyweight championship of the world. Vader now in control. Going for a waistlock. And Vader's got him up. Oh, went over his back. Got agility by Simmons. And Simmons, he got it.